Hey guys, hope you're doing well. We've been having some technical difficulties there, and I guess it's the Canada-US the A thing. They don't want us to go live and talk about stuff. I guess I don't know. Just having some challenges. He's coming back in. I got Brighton coming online from Canada, hopefully anyway. What's really fun is as I've been able to do this business, you think we would be working with just Cincinnati types or in general, but no, we actually interact with people all over the U.S. I'm actually licensed in I don't know how many states, close to 40, maybe 50 states. I feel like, um, yeah, it's Yeah. So it's a ton of fun to be able to be licensed, to connect with lots of people. Also, if you're here and you hear me, let me know. I just heard myself talking, so um, it was kind of distracting because I was talking to myself, and or I was hearing myself say stuff about the states. So anyway, so I'm licensed in all these states, but now I seriously we're like connected globally. And talking to people in Canada, I've talked to people in the UK, and people isn't just an America thing of this fear of money or financial freedom. There's pursuit of financial freedom in other places, and so I wanted to invite Brighton on. He's finally here. Got it going. Uh, he is amazing. Let me just say a little bit about him. He's a mortgage broker, author, and founder of Wealth Marathon, with over a decade of experience in finance and real estate. So, what we're going to talk about and is Canada real estate different than U.S.? Right, that's probably what we'll talk about. I'm doing a local real estate event here in Cincinnati, so that'll be fun. But I'm sure there's different rules in Canada. Not that I know all the rules here, but with that, he's finally made it. Everybody give him a round of applause. I don't know how to do all this music stuff. Maybe I should. Let's do some chill music. See what happens. Um, let's play some chill music. I don't know if you can load whatever. Um, Here we go. Right. I don't know if any chill music is hear it.
I can hear the background. Can you hear me?
Oh, we don't hear you. We do
Oh, okay.
not hear you.
Um,
I see you though.
yeah,
So
I can see the
that's good.
sound. It
We can
seems to be
maybe do
connected this time.
mimes or something like that. Um, so anyway, he's coming all the way from Canada, and you hear me fine, right?
Yeah.
Yep, he hears me fine. Everybody else hears me fine. He's just been having the challenges of when you do things live things happen, like sound stuff. Um, so anyway, switch off. Just do straight through your computer, probably. Um, so what I'm really excited is um, Brighton is similar to us in that he, um, well, talks about money. He does a lot of financial freedom. He has a mastermind course and all of that stuff. But as he gets sorted, I want to make sure that he can share what's the difference in Canada or here. So, um, and if you guys have questions, I know we're jumping in. If you have questions you want to ask this, I have no idea if if you're in the U.S., if we can, I don't know, as real estate, can you buy in Canada? Like, is there like rules of crossing state lines? I don't know. I'm sure he knows all that stuff once he
Can
gets
you
his
hear
sound
me,
going.
Neil?
So let's
Can you hear me,
double
Brendan?
check. I'm gonna see if I can do anything help that wise.
Can you hear
I
me
can
now?
keep preambling. Um, yeah, you are not muted. I cannot hear you. Go ahead and chat. So,
Yeah.
all right, this is why we do not live videos,
Yeah.
because things like this happen. But we do have Brighton here to, what do you say, brighten your day. Right? I don't know how to keep going with this. Let me show you his site as he's figuring this out. Stop sharing, share screen, and you're gonna, while we go through this, this is, oh, he's coming back. This is why I like what he's going to talk about today. Is your money stressing you out? Remember, we have a book called 5 Smooth Stones, and in that book it talks about chaos, confusion, haphazard, anxiety, overwhelm, and stress. Anxious, look at that word. Find yourself constantly stressed out and struggling to make ends meet. Right, that's what we do. He can help with mortgages, money courses, money coaching, right? Those kind of things. Been on a few things, right? And has these videos, right? So there's a lot of similarities, like I said, between us and him, and that's what's really fun to see. So anyway, as he comes in, I just was like, man, he sounds a lot like us. Got some courses, probably more Canadian flavor, I would bet you, and of course books. So always fun to talk to authors too once he's back. So master your mortgage. I wonder if the rules in the US and within Canada are the same. Are they having increases in the side? And I think he's here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
I still can't hear anything. Let me see if it's me. Keep going. Let us know if you're listening and you can hear him. That would be great too. To tell us, hey, I hear everybody, but you guys don't hear each other. That would be good too.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on the computer just now, so I'm just trying to go old school here, but I don't know if you can hear me.
I hear you.
Oh, okay, great.
So here's the fun thing: is I bet you, maybe, and we do hear music.
Yes.
There we go, man. Look at this technology, man.
Was it my end or your end? I don't know. Like it
was probably both of ours.
I had to go to the not clear. I can try to see if maybe you can keep the audio going if I switch cameras, but I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to cut this as maybe we'll go and you guys zoom past this. Now that you're here, now that the audio is going, I was using my AirPods, but it doesn't work. So you guys might have heard this with chill music. We had some good chill music going. So we got Brighton here. Brighton, you're from Canada, nowhere close to me.
That's right.
So what I wanted to talk about today is, and as you guys are finally in there, you can hear me. I can hear you. I can hear him. All of this stuff is golden. Now, what we want to do is talk about this financial chaos we find ourselves in. You have this in your books and in the other thing. I thought this was just an American thing, and when you wrote this, I was like, man, he like must have read our book and translated into Canadian or something. But are we having the same issues in Canada as we are here in the US, do you think? What is your takes on some of this?
Yeah, I mean it's the same system overall, like that we have, because everything's based off you guys' system. So
Mm.
yeah, it's some of the same issues. I mean, you guys have in the US, where it's just like affordability is just gone, down the tube for depending where you are in the States, and same thing in Canada, depending where you are. But yeah, we struggle with the same things. Real estate prices really high, particularly if you're a young person trying to start out. It's very difficult now, and increasingly, it's like you're essentially, the previous generation, if they didn't get a home, it's pretty hard nowadays for you to be able to get that home if you're a young person starting out. So um, makes it super challenging, and it's just more the way the system is built. I think is we've been addicted to these, kind of like not being productive out of our situation, but more going the easy route. And the easy route is just let's keep making free money available, and that builds asset prices up. And in the short term, that's great, but this is kind of like the downturn, which is there's so much more disparity between those who have and those who don't have, because you're just building the whole system based on asset price accumulation. So yeah, it's the same thing we have in Canada here. So very similar.
Yeah, and this is the thing I'm seeing is that divide. And I've heard people, I was even just listening, and I don't, what do you call it? Say you should go research this guy or listen to him. But this guy is named Dave Ramsey. You might have heard of him.
Yeah.
In his video, he was saying, "Oh, you should go ahead and go buy a house now because interest rates. It's still okay time to buy because we're not going to see interest rates lower in the near future like we did 2 or 3 years ago. And go ahead and buy a house.
Yeah.
Because people are waiting, right? They're saying, "Oh, well, I'll just wait, and then I'll do it." So, what do you think? Do you think they should hold off? Should we buy now? Is there going to be more? Do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of asking you you're more in the real estate world than I am. So
Yeah, I think there's this thing, just like we're in industry, there's this thing where I think the genders like advice that Dave Ramsey gives, it's still like and you see this on Bloomberg or wherever, like if you're an average person, you have to understand that they're talking about similar people in the same circle as them.
yeah,
So when Dave Ramsey is saying it's a great time to go buy real estate, well, yeah, if you've got the capital, there's less competition, right? Because people can't afford to buy it. You have the ability to negotiate price down, right? So from his position and his circles, yes, that would make sense because you have the money, right? Like you're not worried about the money, you have the opportunities. But if we're talking the average person,
yeah,
no, because their affordability still isn't there, right? They may buy a house, but they may be taking up 60% of their income or 70% of their income just to make the mortgage payment. So it doesn't make sense in that case, right?
yeah,
So I think when he says that, it's like, yeah, what audience are you talking to? Unfortunately, we, the average people, are listening to him and we think he's talking to us, but he's not talking to us, right?
yeah,
He's talking to his peers that are similar to him, that have capital, that have the resources, and those are who he's speaking to. So when you listen to any of these pundits, I always tell people, like, you gotta ask yourself, like, are you in their circle? Are they talking to you or just talking over you because they're trying to get certain things out there? They're trying to, keep the environment going. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know Dave Ramsey that well, but is he affiliated with real estate where maybe he has to push a certain point or whatever?
right,
Just common sense to know, really, is this advice for me or for someone else? And I think when he says that, I think, yeah, it makes sense. But who is it speaking to? For the average person, I would say no, that doesn't make sense because in this market, what I've seen with clients, they're struggling. Like we had a renewal that came up and, they've got kids and the payment goes up $500 per month.
yeah,
In this high inflation world, that's a huge cost that you're having to factor in now. So is that person thinking about going to buy a new home? No, they're thinking about how do I survive? How do I get through this, high interest environment, inflation?
yeah,
And when you hear someone like Dave Ramsey, and should I be buying? No, he's not talking to you. You have to look at your situation and kind of wonder, is he talking to me? And you and I talk about this. This is why we say it's still important for you to go talk to someone and explain your full situation, so then they can give appropriate advice based on those information, not just listening to a Dave Ramsey or whatever Bloomberg and then think these guys are talking to you or not talking to you.
Yeah, I think that something I've thought about is, again, understanding your full financial picture. And as we've talked about this, you have a course, and as well as us, is a lot of people are just kind of sleepwalking through financially. And they are just saying, oh yeah, well, this person said this. There's probably a Canadian Dave Ramsey. I don't know.
Probably is. I don't know.
but like, he's saying this, and I'm gonna listen, but we don't actually wrestle with our own numbers. We don't, and I think sometimes we need to embrace the chaos a little bit. We need to confront it, and right, the anxiety and the struggling. If we keep doing that, if we keep like just saying, oh well, I'm just going to keep up with the Joneses, right, and do whatever, then we end up in a worse off situation. And so we have to step back and say, okay, here's the reality. What was good now, cash flow, it was not as easy now, and I need to come up with $500, or I need to make sure that I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses and my I don't know. I'm trying to think of something crazy. My renewal for give me something fun, something crazy that people do, like
playing the lottery and expecting to win $1 million.
Service to Rowing International. I don't know. We need to stop that, or certain things.
Yeah,
that's just being fiscally responsible, right? Maybe it was good and you could afford the Mega Swim Class 101 course that you had renewal last time, but now it's time to say, all right, but if you don't have a plan or a understanding of your finances, you can't do anything. And that's what stresses people out, is they love, sometimes I feel like they love the chaos.
Totally. I think it's that, I said in the book, actually someone I was talking to is just like, people, like you saying, they don't want to look at the reality of the situation. And it's this whole system, with financial literacy or whatever online, I find they always give you the solution. They don't want you to actually think about how you can solve things for yourself. It's like, here's what you can do. Get it from me. Where else? I think you and I's approach is like, if I can educate you, I want you to then learn this, because once you learn something, it stays with you, right? Like, no one can take that away from you. So, but when you try to do that, as you and I try to do that, it's like you don't sell, because honestly, that's like requiring people to make an investment in themselves, not in you. And that's very different than me pitching you saying, I've got all the solutions for you. I'm going to be your savior. I'm going to do everything. All you have to do is just pay this fee, this small little fee, and I will take care of everything for you. That's very enticing, but reality is like, that's not going to get you anywhere, because eventually all you're doing is further investing yourself in someone else, and you're not building any infrastructure for yourself. And then I don't know, the other thing that you notice in all these shows is just it's becoming more like entertainment. Like I would say in my course, one of the things I tell people not to do when they're buying a home is don't watch HGTV. Because I said all that is doing is getting you so emotionally triggered, because this is already an emotional process to buying a home. I know when I went through it, I know this stuff. You still get emotional about it, right? You still think about your kids and what you want. Like all that stuff comes into play. So I don't really care who you are, whether you think you're financially smart. Emotions come into buying a home because you think about all those memories and stuff that you want to do. Now, if you start watching HGTV before you're about to buy a home, well, that emotion is going to be very high, because now you're thinking about like, I got to buy the right fence, I got to get a pool in, all those things that have nothing to do with the very fundamental thing you're looking for, which is shelter, right? Like you don't need to spend 6-9% of your income on getting a shelter, right? So I think it's the same thing with entertainment, with finance. I see now there's so much entertainment aspect of it, which is great because it engages people, but then people take that as actual advice. And it's like you're saying, have you looked at your situation?
Yeah.
Like, what is your situation? What are you trying to resolve? Rather than just taking some random advice online and then not going to investigate to see if is what Dave Ramsey is saying applicable to me actually, or is he talking about a completely different person? So it's one of those things, right? So, but it's the world we're living in now, right?
And I think that that's the biggest challenge that I see as I work with people is they want a quick fix, right? And when I do life insurance and annuities, and I had to educate them on how to use the policy effectively. But we'll just buy real estate and say, I'm gonna be a real estate investor, and there's grandmas who are real estate investors. I'm like, dude, you do not need to be that. You need to like stop spending or
Yeah.
something. And then I'm like, you know what? I have this book called Five Smooth Stones. You could use it. And someone's even told me before, they're like, it's just too much. You need to have it less in a bite size, in a small amount or something. And I'm like, it's literally going through a framework for you to think, and it's a journal. Most of it's blank pages, actually. But people are like, yeah, but I need you to tell me how to solve my problem in 144 characters or less.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm out. And if you can't do that, I'm out. And so then we get Ponzi schemed, right, into other things. And we're like, ooh, look, here we can do this, and Bernie Madoff stuff happens, and what is that, Sam Bankman-Fried kind of stuff happens. And I'm not against those things, right? I'm just wanting to say, oh, okay. Or as I think about it a lot, I'm again, Banking Yourself and Infinite Banking Authorized. Did this video where it's very similar, and what we need to be is not against things, like we need to be for people. And I think that's a big difference, and for ourselves, right? If we're not for ourselves and saying, do I really need that? That's that needs versus wants. My 5-year-old is asking me, do we need it or do you want it? The problem is, in our world, we're like, yes, I need it. Do you really need a up-to-date smartphone that we got addicted to these things, right? You know.
Oh my gosh.
How much do these cost? Right. This is you guys see as your economy, is that happening the same way where people are just buying when they don't really have the money?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing in Canada we experience. Just fiscally, we're going through the same, because again, it's all the same system, right? Like I always tell like people, like way back in the day, most of the world was non-capitalist, but now everyone's gone, okay, this is the way you get your society out of poverty. So everyone's all in with capitalism, right? There's different variations of it in different countries, but more or less everyone's like, okay, we're going to do capitalism to try to get our country and our society better, right? So in Canada, it's the same thing that we're having. Is we're kind of built a system. First of all, in Canada is a little bit different than the US. You guys have a little more competition than we do. Like, for example, in Canada, we only have like 3 major phone company providers that we deal with. They control everything. We have like essentially 2 airlines that control everything. So that's kind of stiffened the competition here. And then that's made it even more difficult. But furthermore, to the point you're saying, is just the whole system. You know, what I find interesting now, as being a kid, I'm from Nigeria, and coming here into the system, which when I first came, it was about, free enterprise and all these different things. And what I see now is that we moved to this weird way where it's like, I don't want to call it socialism, but it's almost like we have corporate socialism in a sense, because you have 1 or 2 companies that dominate everything. And to me, that goes against capitalism, because one of the ways that the United States or any country really is, you need that competition. You need that constant. It's like I play basketball. you want to be the best. You want to play against the best because it helps you out, right? Even when you lose, it improves you. So I think it's interesting as we go into this capitalism phase where increasingly we're getting one or two companies dominating. And I think for all of us individual people, it's kind of going, okay, well, if they all dominate this, and we know this is what doesn't work for capitalism, how do we break it free? But the interesting thing, Brendan, that I've seen is when I talk to people about this is people don't really want to break it up, right? People don't understand, like, because it comes with a consequence, right? Right? If you break up Apple, what does that do for the American society and in general and all those different things? But long term, I think it's a challenge. And I think that's what we're having in Canada. There's such a lack of competition here that now it's just, there's a new report that said we're the least, I think the seventh least productive country. Again, you can see it, there's lack of competition. When you don't have competition, capitalism kind of be this weird thing where, everyone wants to work for one company and they dominate everything. And eventually they don't need to pay attention to you because what are your options?
Yeah, I see that as Amazon is one of those things
Yes.
that they run the world now. And we will say, and this is happening in courts, right? This is really interesting. And you have the Democrats and Republicans, and now that people will not like me either which way I go, but and they'll say, well, it's Trump or it's Biden or whatever, and we need to not have big government. But if in order for any of this, we have to keep up with the big companies, right? So lobbying in the U.S. Is pretty interesting, and Wall Street, for example, is big lobbying corporations. It's all big corporations there, and we have what we call, it's not a capitalist society. We are in a plutocracy, which is all run by corporations. And we then say, but it's not socialist because it's not run by the government. I'm like, well, technically it's worse because it's run by corporations who have no other kind of like responsibility. Right now, is that good? There's a checks and balances, but if corporations run everything and it's all about money, well, as much as we want to say, oh, the little guy can make it, that's a bunch of crap, right? Most of the time it is very, very hard. And it's competition. I'm like, no, because the little guy can't even, like, I think about this. We were just talking about this on growing our channel and growing some of our stuff. I don't have the ad budget revenue as a small business that Charles Schwab does, right? So then what they do is they control the narrative. Right. And what we have to realize, whether you're socialist, whether you're Republican, Democrat, capitalist, it doesn't matter. What we have to realize is it's between our two ears that we need to be thinking about our money habits and what we do. And I used to own a coffee shop. And then that coffee shop, I said, we vote every day with our dollars. We impact other people on the other side of the world by how we buy our coffee. It impacts other people. And there's a lot of people that are playing this game trying to get our money, including banks, right? And what I think is interesting is the banks will say, oh, well, there's inflation, so we're going to raise interest rates and make a lot of money. They make lots of money, whether we're in the real estate game or not, right? But then 2008 happens and they get bailed out because they don't have it. I'm like, wait, so they won either way. This is a rigged system. So if we start doing that, and I want to ask you, so you remember the movie The Matrix? So it's kind of like the red pill and blue pill, I believe. So I think, like you and I, we figured it out. We haven't totally figured it out, but we've researched and we've like taken the pill,
Yeah.
we see the system for what it's worth.
Yeah.
We're trying to educate other people,
Yeah.
right? And the problem is most people would rather stay in the delusion
Yeah.
than go into reality. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
No, I get what you're saying is that it's requires more work
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So staying in the routine is comfortable. I don't have to deal with it until I have to deal with it. All right.
Yep.
And then once it gets there, then everyone's like, whoa, what happened here? Who's at fault? And blah, blah, blah. But I think something you said about the system is kind of like how I kind of go about trying to understand money is like, I always tell people like, we can argue about like how we got here. We can argue about what happens when we leave here. That's your personal what it values that's fine. But one thing I realized early on is like, wait, human beings have always created a system to try to keep some harmony within themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
In every system you create, you have those who benefit largely in the system and those who don't benefit. And what I realized growing up was just trying to, if I could understand economics, because it's just a human created system,
Yep.
and understand, okay, what is the system or the people who are controlling the system majority, what is it that they're trying to achieve? What behaviors are they trying to do? And how are they trying to do that? And try to replicate that on a very small scale to my personal level,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's just really the key. So when I talk about capitalism, when I say Apple, or you're talking like you said, but it doesn't matter. Like you have to get beyond this right, left, and like it doesn't actually matter. What
Right.
we're seeing is how is this system constructed? And there's no perfect system, first off. Let's be clear about that. There's always going to be a small segment that doesn't benefit as much.
Yep.
As a society, we as a society have to decide what percentage is that going to be? Is it going to be 50% of people, or do we want where it's 90% of people and only 10% are maybe not bad? Because I would say the flip side of that is there are some human beings that I could give you the perfect system that requires you to do some effort, but you just choose not to participate in it because for whatever reason you just don't want to do that, right? So we have to account for that. But if you can spend time understanding human beings create this system, understand where you fall in that system, what are the big guys that are benefiting tremendously from that system? What are they doing? And try to replicate their behavior. Not what they say to you, what they actually are doing with their money.
Yep.
Then you're going to have a little bit of success relatively to your own talent and abilities. So it's really important I say that because a lot of people go, well, that means if I replicate the same thing Warren Buffett, then I'm going to end up like him. No, but you're going to end up in the way that your talent and capacity is like, right?
Yep.
So that's really important. But the capitalism thing is really something that I personally worry about because I think for us who quote unquote on the Western society or whatever, I just see it. And me starting this business on YouTube, I see it, the narrative, and people don't understand this because you said earlier we're just on the phone. The vast majority of people do not understand the system is changing dramatically on them until they start to try to start their own business or whatever. And they realize, wait a minute, I can't get ahead. I don't have the marketing budget to spend literally $10,000 a month just to get my message out. And then YouTube controls everything. We're constantly, what do we need to, what thumbnail do we need? What fear things do we need to attract people on? And none of us are thinking, is this the best way for us to create the world that we want? Competition. And I think that's where capitalism, it needs more competition because I think society-wise, when you look at the good times is when a society has less inequality. And by that, I'm not saying like no equality because you can't have that. But when the inequality and the gaps between different groups are smaller, there's more harmony between them. Because think about it, like if me and Brendan are pretty much similar in terms of success level, I'm less likely to get angry at whatever he says that I disagree with because life is good for me too. Like I don't need to go about it. But if I'm in a far lower position than him, everything becomes like a fight with him because now it's like personal. And that's what you see in society. And in Canada, you're seeing that too. You know, we've had, I don't know if you're familiar with our politics, but we have the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and he's hated in the country, I would say, fair enough. Like, no one wants him to be back. But again, I keep telling him, like, you know, prior to him, we had another conservative government. And it's funny, those same people that love Trudeau now were hating, right? So it's like everyone just flips to when their team gets in power and they cheer, but the system is still crumbling because neither of them are interested in fixing the problem. They're just interested in making sure it's their party that's able to make the rules and whatever it is, right? And like you said,
But,
they just pocket each other. They work with each other. It's like
and
a revolving door.
I think that there's more power in Jamie Dimon, who runs JP Morgan.
Yeah.
There is, well, Elon Musk, of course. We know all those guys.
Yeah.
We didn't even know for a few years Jeff Bezos, and then all of a sudden, everybody knew his name.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wait, oh wow, this guy runs a, I remember like for a while we're Amazon, and then we
Washington Post, and then he just like they just spread their tentacles everywhere once again.
and so same with I forgot who was the owner of Fox, right? And I'm like, wait, Fox News, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
This is interesting how big these guys just own, and the inequality is for the really, 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 really rich.
Yeah.
And then us, right?
Yeah.
And even as I'm growing in our world, it's still really hard, right? And I feel like to divide even middle class, it's getting harder and harder to get ahead because most of it, and we say like that, there was this idea trickle down economics. If it comes to the business, it'll trickle down, but it didn't. It's actually gone to their bottom line, stock buybacks and all this other craziness that isn't real wealth, just to inflate and give those bigger guys more power, right? When Amazon can choose and say, well, you tell me why I should build in your city, give me all those tax breaks, and then I'll build in your city. That's a problem, right? And I wonder if I think there's a degree of competition, but I think there's a degree of being too big. And this idea in the banks, too big to fail, where we're like, oh yeah, they're too big, so we're going to bail them out. And that's where I think on this idea of smaller government, because it can't be too big. I don't know. And it's like, that's complicated. So then we never find an answer, but we'll blame Trump. We'll blame Biden. We'll blame, I bought this house and it was their fault. Whereas what we need to, again, be going back to is, what do I want? And what is enough? Like for me, our world is all about, let's get the next plane. Let's get the next thing. Let's keep growing. And what is enough? What is that it for you? And then I'll be told I'm a socialist because I'm saying, well, enough. That's enough. And I'm like, no, it's poverty. It's not prosperity. It's living with enough, right? And then you can do a lot more out of your overflow. That was our old business name, was overflow. You can do a lot more. One is pay yourself. Capitalist, you got to pay yourself. Got to make some money. But you don't have to have everything in a private jet. Right. I don't know. What do you think about that? You think there's two extremes, like really poor?
No, I'm with you what you're saying, because I think those of us who think about it from a system and sustainability, it just makes sense. Like, put it this way, what you're saying is essentially, if you're a fisherman and you're going to fish the entire fish and not think about your next generation, then that's great. If you're the only generation, great, fish as much as you want. But if you're the idea that you want to keep this going, there needs to be some thought in, like, oh, you're a logger, like, how do we replace the tree so we can keep doing this over and over, right? So that's the idea you're saying, is like, how do we create a system that is sustainable so we can all keep enjoying, prosperity for a long period of time? So I don't think it's weird. But to go to your point is, we've had these scenarios, and I think now I'm starting to be more looking back in history, because I'm starting to realize Ray Dalio's book, he is right. Like, all the stuff has happened before. It's just we always think it's new in our generation, and there's they change. Like, technology now is changing, but it's the same thing, right? Like, it's just different ways that they try to, like, do the same thing. Because humans, I find out, are not that creative as much as we think we're. We're really not. We're just repeating the same messages. So you see this with John Rockefeller, right? Like, he had Standard Oil, and it could dominate the entire market. And the government at that time broke it all up. People forget that that's where you got Exxon, all these three different major chevrons, right? was a breakup of his company because he got too dominant. It's funny we don't have the same, force when we see things like a Microsoft, when we see things like an Amazon. There's almost this implicit where all of us are kind of like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But down the road, it is going to be a problem because, like you said, when Brandon tries to start a business, it makes it harder for him to try to start a business because they control so much, right? When I'm trying to create something, I'm on YouTube, it makes it harder because they control the gatekeeper, right? And then we talk about the inequality, wealthy people not trickling down. Something that's interesting I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed it with podcasting. I'm a sports person. I play basketball.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the other day, I'm like, this is interesting. So you have all these athletes that have already made probably close to $500 million going on a platform that's supposed to be for quote unquote the average person be able to get their message in now. And they're pumping millions because they have the money to
Yep.
get their stuff out there. And they're just feeding on money that they already have. And I'm going, does that seem fair? It seems weird. It feels like they should have a different lane where they pay all the capital rather than comment in a lane where average people that don't have the capital you have, they don't have the marketing budget. And by the way, they didn't make $500 million over their playing career, so they're not sitting on like money.
Yep.
These are people trying to actually make a living for themselves, trying to find the best way to get their message out. But you see this too, this reinforcing behavior in YouTubers, really high successful ones. They keep preaching, it's possible, it's possible, it's possible. I'm like, is it?
I'm right there with you because I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot. I've been doing this for a long time, 4 years, it feels like, and doing videos. And I mean, I do a lot in there. Maybe I'm not sexy enough, or I'm not blonde, or
Wait, I'm with you on that.
I don't know. I'm like, man, it's because I'm not showing plane crashes and fat people or something. Right. And I'm like, all right, because we love to look at other people's misfortune.
Yes.
Or the craziness that happens, or the really, really rich, right? We love that.
Yeah.
We don't love thinking, but
No.
that's what got us here. And I think that in our capitalistic world, right, that's happening now, we've built this. Like we were back in the before the Second War, we made money. It was more on the war, right? And then we said, oh, wait, what's going to happen? We need to create stuff, just going. And so we became more consumer driven, and that happened. And in the 40s, right? We also did break up the railroads here in the U.S.
Yes.
Good, but we became consumers, right? And then what I find interesting with the Fed doing certain things and money going in is we say, oh well, we need to give it a boost, or we need to put money into it, right? That's what happened, and we need to keep it growing. Have you ever looked at somebody who's like really overweight, eating? What would you tell them to do if they're like 300 pounds and they go for another McDonald's burger? Like,
I would say you should probably try a different diet, and let's try to work out and live a more healthier lifestyle.
So, is a healthy lifestyle for that in general to keep growing? Should he keep growing, or should he shrink?
He should shrink because his weight has been a problem to his health.
Right?
Yeah.
Our financial system, I think, is very similar in that we are told you are only healthy if you keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot keep growing.
Yeah.
And it is impossible, right? And sometimes we're very bloated, and then we put in infusions to say, let's keep this party rolling. And the problem is the party's going to have to stop at some point. And it's going to maybe not stop on the baby boomers. I wish at some point I'm like, all right, come on, guys. We'll just transfer this over so we can fix this. Not that we'll do any better, but I'm a little bit like, what the heck happened? Because of greed. Like even if you go to I don't know if you guys the same system, but in CNN, they have a greed and
Yeah.
business section, greed versus fear
Yeah.
index. I'm like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
That's how our system is built, greed and fear.
Yeah.
Right. That's what's healthy. I'm like, really? That's not healthy
No.
at all. So, um, anyway, so I know you're definitely like saying, okay, how can we break through this? How old are you right now?
I am 35.
Yeah. So I'm 46 now. Uh, where's the hope for here? Where do you think, say 35 years from now,
Mhm.
the next generation is kind of retired to heaven, or the ones that are in doing things right now, your political leaders and ours, right?
Yeah.
What do you think it's going to lead? What can we do as younger people to help? I don't know, Gen Zers, these these kids that are
Yeah.
being born now. What can we do to help them?
I think the biggest thing, and it's a challenge even for me as a parent, because I'm a parent. It's the point you're saying in this whole thing is just like we have to start thinking. Like
Mhm.
we can't just okay, like go through the motion. And the reality, like you said, there will be a generation that you cannot pass this on anymore. You will have to deal with it. I don't know what generation that is, but there's going to be a generation where you do not have the tools and liberty that we have right now to just hike interest rates, inject stuff, quantitative easing, all these fancy, like it will not work anymore, right?
Yeah.
There will be a generation that will have to deal with because the way we've been dealing with it is basically taking from future generation. It's saying, you know what, we're gonna live our best life right now, and we'll kick it down the can, you know, and
Yeah.
that works. But there will be a generation where that option is not going to be available, right? And to give people a perspective, you know, because I'm from Africa, this is what Africa gets into, why it stays in that position, right? Because Africa is in this weird place and it's gotten better at it. But early when we came to Canada, is that Africa needed to tell the generation that was living right now that you have to sacrifice. And that's very difficult. People can sacrifice for their kids, but as a whole, to sacrifice as a whole to some people I don't know, to some generation I don't know it's coming ahead. But that's, if you look at history, that's what's always happened.
Yeah.
There's a generation that has to sacrifice to make things better for the next one, right? So I think it's the same thing we're having here when you talk about consumerism. It's not that we can't consume. I consume things too. It's just like, can we get to a place where it's a little bit more sustainable,
Yeah.
where the idea isn't just constant growth, growth, growth? When honestly, what does it mean? What does it mean when your country is a top GDP company? Like, what does that mean for you?
Right.
Does it translate to anything to you? It
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yep.
So these metrics, I think, are designed with these people who created a system with the idea that we have to keep the system going. So we create all this narrative and this employment things, employment figures, and we get obsessed.
Yep.
But like the average person, you and I, it means nothing to our daily life. Like
Yep.
it honestly means nothing. So I think for young people, the first thing I try to do is like educate yourself about the system, because if you don't know a system, you're gonna make the wrong behavior. So that's the first thing. And then I would hope my generation, by educating themselves, they start to understand the connectedness to everything, right? Like you can't keep making one policy, like we're gonna reduce interest rate for 10 years and not think there's gonna be a consequence down the road on what
Right.
that means,
Right.
right? So we have to be better. And I think, I don't know if my generation will be any better or the next generation, because there's always a group within every generation that does the same thing as the previous generation. But I'm hoping as younger kids get more information, they seem to be smart, they seem to be learning things a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
I think the social media is a problem because I think it's pushing them the wrong way. But my hope is that they learn things quicker, they learn money better, and maybe they elect leaders, they're a little bit more thoughtful.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I think they will have to, because, like I said, they can buy homes. So I think they're going to have to create a new system.
Yeah.
And listen to these guys, and I'm not saying anything negative or wishing harm on anyone, but people who are leaving the earth, making decisions for which they're not going to have to deal with, or the consequences not have to live with, can be a little bit weird. Because if you're going to make a decision that's
Yeah.
going to impact you for the next 30 years, well, maybe you make a little bit different decision if you knew you also had to live with those decisions, as opposed to you going, I'm going to be out of here anyway, so what does it matter, right? So I think there's hope, but it comes down again to what you're saying, which is more of our generation needs to start thinking. We need to start understanding, thinking more thoughtfully about things and not just accepting, oh, this is the way it is, so we're going to do it. I tell young people, like, I know your parents bought a home. I know it's worked out for them. You have to do things differently because your system, your time calls for different decisions.
Yep.
So you can either keep wanting to live the life your parents did and find it really exhausting and just like you can't deal with it, or you can start to have an honest conversation with your parents and go, things have changed. The system is not what it used to be. So I have to make different decisions.
The other thing I see is that I deal with a lot with um, seniors in general and
Okay.
people in
Yep.
50s, 40s, and they haven't planned for future them, right?
Mm,
And living for now,
yeah.
and they are now in a place where they're like, oh, this day came. Oh, I don't have any retirement now, and we have a
Yeah.
crisis in our hands
Oh
because
my God.
these same
Yeah.
people lived for today, not for the or even planned for the future, or they
Yeah.
said, I'll put in a 401k and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Company match maybe, and it's all been a sham in general.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh, now I can't work. And I still got 20 more years left.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that oftentimes we don't think about even not even our kids. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like we're not even thinking about future us,
Yeah.
meaning us in 10 years from now, us in
Yeah.
20 years from now. We're very much focused on us right now, and we won't sacrifice for future us uh,
Yeah.
because I need that big screen TV. I need this thing.
Yes.
I want this because I deserve it. And we don't know how to, again,
Yeah.
budget, whether that's for future you or whatever.
Yeah.
We also inflation will say, well, inflation did that. Well, yes, but you can still somehow figure that out a little bit, still save maybe a percentage, 2%,
Yeah.
3, whatever. But we don't even think about future us. We're like, yeah,
Right.
whatever, who cares? Let alone our kids and our grandkids.
Yeah.
Because in our human nature, we're selfish.
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, but you're killing yourself. And
Yes.
and we have to not do that. And so for me, I have a 5-year-old to be very introspective, say, what do I want to be as a parent, as a grandparent, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's my preaching. It's so hard because some people are, again, immediate gratification. I do life insurance, and God knows everybody doesn't care about that stuff. They want their
Until
money
they have to.
until they have to, and then you're like, oh well, you're 300 pounds, uh,
Yeah.
and so that's the hard part,
Yeah.
and they want it to be able to create that quick rate of return in the market
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the market is a illusion. They say, oh, well, it's average 25% rate of return. I'm like, that is not true. Uh,
Hmm.
Averages don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Uh, you can manipulate averages, right? Literally.
Yeah.
And so that's a challenge and it's an educational piece. And I'm like, I didn't get into this to be an educator. I got into this to help people. But then as an activist, I'm like, maybe this is the most powerful place to be in as an activist. Um,
Yeah.
I do think that's why Dr. King was actually shot initially was because he was going after economics. Uh,
Yeah.
and the people didn't like that. So, oh, maybe.
Yeah. It's a tough it's tough, but I think the key for anyone watching, I think, is just educate yourself, like on anything. If you can educate yourself, you can do it well. Before we get off, I just want to get the thought on this because we're talking about this system. What is your own thought on this whole AI thing and the way they're trying to pitch it all to the masses? Um,
Oh, I think people love it and it's going to be interesting and it's going to totally transform like um, social media did. and we're not going to know what's real and what's not real. Regulating it, we already have a small government for big businesses, let alone now robots. So I'm like, oh, well, I have no idea where it's going to go. But it's terrifying because if you understand and you can like manipulate the technology even faster.
Yes.
And people are, most people are idiots. Let's be honest. They'll listen to things and not realize it's a robot, right? And you're like, yeah, that was not, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys are here and you think I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the other idiots.
Exactly.
But it's true. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we are so screwed because people are gullible, and it does help. I use it, right? I have to, but at what point is it too far? And I don't know. I mean, we are evolving. Like we might say, well, it's like the car or whatever. I don't like. We depend on cars now. Yeah, people are afraid of that. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to change everything. So, if you're in there, if you have a comment, put it in the comments. I don't know if I can see them, but yeah, totally. Comment, let us know. But yeah, I got to end this real soon because I got to go to a real estate event here in a minute. So, how can people find you, Brighton?
Yeah. So the best way to find me if you're interested in knowing a little bit about me is you can go to my website, wealthmarathon.com. If you want to pick up my book, Master Your Mortgage, what the bank will not tell you about buying the right home, that's on Amazon. So yeah, Wealth Marathon, and then you can pick up the book anywhere on Amazon. Which is funny because we're just bashing Amazon, and now I'm saying Amazon.
Well, and here's the thing, I really like this is really really hard for me to think about because I don't like Amazon.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't like some of the stuff in general that we have out there, right? But what is hard is in order to even like get our out there, YouTube. I'm like, you got to be on YouTube, literally, to be out there to share. And I don't like social media, but hey, I have to play
Me too.
and I don't like Amazon, but yet our book is on Kindle. Now, as of today, it's going to be on Kindle tomorrow. So if you go to wealthwisdomfp.com/shop, you can see our book because my birthday is tomorrow. And
congratulations. Okay. Happy early birthday.
that's going to be on Kindle. So buy his book and my book. It is on Amazon, and I wrestle with that. I don't want to be a part of this system, but
it's tough though. Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is what the problem with big companies is. Like, you're forced to participate, whether you like it or not. And then it gets tougher for you to create another system on your own because then you're just fighting against the tide. So, yeah.
It's hard. So, Brighton, thanks for being here. Hopefully we touched a little bit. We will re-release this video later. I'll cut off the first 10 minutes with me just not hearing anything. And then get this out there. It's live right now. So if you guys listen and you bypass 10 minutes, you'll find us and start from the beginning, or not the very, very beginning. And then if you found this helpful, comment, let me know what you think. And maybe we'll do more Canada, US stuff. I don't know.
I'm happy. I'll come on. I'll set up the camera so we get better light in here and stuff like that. So yeah, let's do some more Canadian because there's a lot of similarities happening here.
Oh my gosh, and we need to work together because God knows the past generation. I don't know what they were doing, but we got a lot of problems. All right, guys, thanks for joining us, and we will see you.